Good morning, everybody. This is my AEP 800 Module 5 assignment. I am Christine Binger. We were asked to read 4 or 5 articles and then watch a video. So for the first article, Barriers to Using Web 2.0 in 21st Century Schools. It seems that a lot of the issues that we've kind of been discussing thus far are the same issues with this, and that a lot of teachers don't have time, training, various kinds of support to properly implement the technology that is up and coming and that we want our students to use. So it's hard to figure out how to navigate that when you feel like in these ways you're doing it alone. Like finding time to learn it, finding time to be trained, finding time to ask for help, things like that. How does this apply to me? My district's really supportive of using technology, and they offered a lot of professional development, almost too much professional development because you're just scratching the surface and you're not digging in. So I need to find ways and times to dig in, but I also maybe need to ask my students to learn this as well. And maybe they will be able to teach me something about it. Article number 2 were the 7 common barriers that obstruct adoption in education. I just listed the 7 points, which I think in my school, I meet every single one of them in some variation. For example, the first one, a lack of vision. Most people may feel one way about something, but there might be 1 or 2 people that do not have that same vision or goal. Thus, we are not achieving point number 1. But the 2 that I could focus on the most for myself would be number 4, figuring out how to scale promising innovations, and number 6, thinking beyond textbooks. It's hard for me to find ways to integrate new technology into my classroom because I teach English, so it's hard for me to see how robotics or makerspaces can necessarily be used with my curriculum. But I will need to meet with other curriculum course teachers and the people who are presenting the sources, the tools, and ask what they've seen or what they would recommend that I try. And then for thinking beyond the textbook, we don't use textbooks in my school. We have them, but we don't use them. They're very old. So I need more help in creating these authentic lessons and units that my students are going to be interested in and that are going to apply technology and skills for a post-secondary world that they're preparing for. The third article is the digital divide. A quarter of the nation is without broadband. I found this one to be incredibly interesting because I had never thought about this demographic in the rural community and how it seems that providers and government people, the FCC, do not want to put it out there for very silly reasons, thus taking away opportunities that other days they preach are very important. So while some providers are all for education and teaching and being innovative, they aren't providing those opportunities to everybody. And I find that to be very interesting. I have a very small population of rural students who travel into my high school. And I never considered them part of this digital divide because it wasn't the classic signs, I guess you could say, where it was low income or poverty or home situation or anything like that. So I probably need to go back and reevaluate and see what those students are doing and what they're doing, how they're dealing with it, and what I can do to help with these things. The next article was Open Educational Resources, and this was an article that I thought was incredibly helpful, as it will help me, as we don't use textbooks in my high school, it will help me develop, and it's a way that I can start looking for tools and resources to build a curriculum for my students. I really liked the purpose that was discussed in this article in that they are not focusing on the cost, because everything's going to cost money and some things are going to cost more money than other things. But they're focusing on the need, and the need is that we need to be more innovative and excited about what we're teaching. And when we're teaching the same thing from a textbook every single year, our students are getting drained even though they aren't doing the same thing all the time because the work isn't creative and fun. And so what I liked about this was you were able to meet with the minds of educators across the nation and learn from them and how they're creating these lessons. And I think that's such a valuable tool. So I was very excited when I read this article. And the video that we watched, ICT adoption barriers, this is something that kind of gets discussed in my school in that we know that primary and secondary teachers deal with very different realities. There are days that I'm jealous that primary teachers have the same students all day, every day, and days that I am thankful that I don't. But It makes it very clear that this is why sometimes a structure or a vision is built in primary through district and gets dropped, it seems, or crumbles at the secondary level because we don't have a team structure. We don't have small groups that we can work with. I'm seeing 150 students over 2 days. All 150 students have different math teachers, different social studies teachers, different elective teachers, and we are all doing things so differently that we need to make sure to follow district and school procedure. Otherwise, we are missing this valuable learning opportunity for students if we're all teaching them something different. That's something that is a problem in my school, but also it's really hard to see how I, as one person, can fix it other than I need to make sure that I'm following the set expectations and hope that other teachers are too. Now to answer the questions that were presented to us, do you feel the digital divide can be resolved? Why or why not? To speak honestly, I do not feel like it can be resolved, but I feel like it can be improved. So while there are various reasons that the digital divide takes place, these are not things that we can completely eliminate. For example, one of the articles discussed poverty. We will never be able to 100% eliminate poverty in our society. We don't have that kind of structure in our society or in our government or in our healthcare or anything like that that allows for everybody to be the same in that sense. So that will always be a factor. However, I believe that 14.3% can be minimized. Maybe a goal of it would be to be under 10%. That would be an improvement based on the digital divide, but at no point in time will that eliminate. So in all the factors that create the digital divide, I feel like it's really hard to say that it can be resolved and that it doesn't exist, but I do think it can be resolved in that it improves. What skill set do you feel 21st century students must acquire prior to graduation? I want my students to collaborate. I want them to be empathetic of people and differing opinions. I want them to comprehend what they're reading and what they're writing, because sometimes those don't transfer. I want them to be able to think critically, and I want them to act positively with members of the community. I run a very heavy discussion-based class because students need these skills. They need to communicate. They need to be empathetic and understanding. They need these things no matter what career they choose. And unfortunately, I feel like every year the students just get a little more carefree about what they're saying and how they feel about people. So it's important to teach those skills through these things. What impact has the global economy had on your personal use of the internet? I use the internet for very basic needs, such as shopping, communication, social media. I Google things that I want to know the answer to. Wikipedia is not a reliable source, but it is my source sometimes in these situations. So I'm not much of an explorer when it comes to technology. Personally, I kind of wait for it to come to me, which is bad, but therefore I'm not using it to the fullest extent, and I could probably explore more and see what else I can do. What technology training do you still need to effectively integrate technology in your current position? I think the two things I need, and I've said this before, I need time. Like I said, my district will give lots of professional development, but you're only scratching the surface. I thought Makerspace was something totally different until about a week ago. So I need more time to play and to see and to utilize these tools to really grasp an understanding of it. But that's something that I need to create myself because you aren't provided time like that in my district. And then I need support of colleagues because I'm afraid of using new technologies for various reasons, including kind of not knowing what I'm doing. I need colleagues who are going to be willing to kind of venture into these technologies with me and help support each other as we have problems, as our students have problems. Maybe we can do cross-curricular work. So those would be the two things that I think that I need the most because that will help me be more comfortable with material. And once I'm comfortable, I can expand that further. Is your school or district equipped with 21st century technology? My school is very equipped. They're very advanced. If something new comes out, they want to do it right away. So we have Makerspace, we have robotics classes, coding classes, video game design. We are a one-to-one school. We offer, we're in a small community with a big population because we have a military base that comes in. And so we have a lot of opportunity to present work and opportunities to students outside of the school day. So we're fortunate for that in that we are very advanced, I would say, it sounds like, based on what I'm reading on these articles and seeing other people say about their schools. What are the advantages of innovative practice in schools? Some advantages would be that students are prepared, they're flexible, they're not afraid of failure, and they're creative, and all of these will result in their success. Um, you can teach basic mathematical skills to some extent, but these are skills that students need to learn because they practice them and they become a part of their lives. And they're not something that you can sit down and truly do. It's something you have to experience. And I think that these are things that are going to make our students successful. What disadvantages do you see? The digital divide will, like I said earlier, will always exist, and that's a huge disadvantage, as we can't, unfortunately, make everything a possibility for everybody because that's just not the structure of our society. So that would be a huge disadvantage. Obviously, the cost. We know education gets very little funding and cuts are made all the time. That will constantly be an issue, but with the OER, they were talking about how there are various forms of use for that and therefore various costs. So having more opportunities like that would help. Sometimes I wonder, are we expecting too much of our students? If we're constantly integrating technology and people are talking about makerspace one day and then robotics the next, are we expecting our students to learn too much too fast? That's just a thought on my mind. And then, are we creating and monitoring digital citizenship? We talk about digital citizenship in my school all the time, but when the students leave the class, we're still having issues with understanding what that means and how that affects them and those around them. So we need to be aware of that and continue to support positive digital citizenship. The final question is, have you experienced problems with cyberbullying or other inappropriate internet use with students? I personally have not. I haven't had any issues in my classroom or anything directed towards myself. However, I know my school has. I know that teachers in my school and students in my school have. We've had things including inappropriate social media posts and comments, inappropriate emails sent both to students and teachers. And Snapchat seems to be still a huge issue, which is surprising because kids are not realizing that that is not just a 10-second picture or a video that's going to disappear. This can stick with you forever. And unfortunately, it falls into the hands of some individuals who are not respectful of people in that. And that goes back to teaching proper digital citizenship. And then my last slide are my resources. So thank you for listening, and I hope everybody has a great day.